Erev Shabbat Shalom Rabotai. We are continuing with our Mishnah Yomi Masechet Ketubot. We are up to Perek Yud Gimel Mishnah Chet. Today's Mishnah should be Leilun Nishmat Neria ben Svetlana Alayev, Eliyahu ben Burcha Israelo ben Chana bad Miriam Menuchatam began Eden Amen, and Lavdi ben Chaim lechaim v'derefua shelemav Daniel Shalom ben Rosa betoch Shah Cholei Israel. This Mishnah discusses the sixth of Admon's rulings. Hamotzi shtachov al chavero. If one produces a loan document that states that he lent money to someone else and he now demands payment, and the other one, the borrower, produces a bill of sale showing that the lender sold him a field after the debt was due, Admon says, the borrower is able to claim, if I were truly obligated to pay you, you should have collected your debt when you sold me the field. Meaning, as soon as you received the money for the sale, you should have taken it as payment for the loan instead of going through with the sale. If the lender was in fact owed money, he would have surely taken the buyer's money as payment of the debt and kept the field or demanded additional money for it. Instead, however, he wrote a bill of sale and released the field, which shows that he was not owed money at that time. Rather, the loan was already paid, or there was never a loan in the first place and the document was forged. Normally, it is forbidden to renege on a business deal once money has changed hands. As it says in Masechet Bamitzia, chapter 4, Mishnah 2, a person is morally bound to honor even his oral commitments, as it says in Bamitzia, page 49a. In this case, however, where the loan was already due and the borrower had not yet paid, the lender would be permitted to default on the sale and take the borrower's money as payment of the loan. But the sages say, this lender was clever in that he sold him the land because he is now able to use the field as collateral and sees it if the borrower defaults on his loan. Had he not sold him the field, the borrower might have hidden away all his money and movable assets, and the lender would then never be able to recover his loan. The lender therefore sold him the field, which cannot be hidden, to have a secure source from which to eventually collect the loan. Since the lender has a good reason for the sale, it does not disprove his claim. Now, there were two different customs. In some places, first the buyer would give the money to the seller, then the bill of sale will be written and handed over to the buyer. But in other places, the bill of sale will be written and handed over before the money is paid. Regarding the places where the payment comes first, the sages agree with Admon that since the seller could have taken the money and walked away, but instead proceeded with the sale, he clearly has not owed money by the buyer. The dispute applies only in places where the bill of sale is written and handed over before the money is paid. There, the seller could not have taken the money and refused to surrender the field because the buyer had already taken possession of the bill of sale. Nevertheless, according to Admon, the buyer can claim that if the seller was really owed the money, he should have informed two witnesses that he is selling the field only to use it as security with which to recover his loan. Since the seller did not give any such messages to witnesses, he is assumed to be lying and his claim is dismissed. According to the sages, though, the seller can argue that he was afraid to tell witnesses his real reason for the sale, because if he had done so, the borrower might have heard him backed out of the sale. Since the seller had a good reason for surrendering the field without explaining his intention, this is not a basis for rejecting his claim. And that is of Mishnah Chet, the Rav Dastal's V'lechak Chachamim, the Archa follows the opinion of the sages. Now, the seventh and last of Admon's rulings deals with this case similar to that of the previous Mishnah. We are now in Mishnah Tet. If two people produce loan documents against each other, for example, Reuven presents a document that states that he lent money to Shimon, and in response, Shimon produces a document stating that he lent money to Reuven. Admon says that Shimon can argue to Reuven, if I were truly obligated to pay you, how could you borrow money from me afterward? Instead of borrowing from me, you should have demanded payment of your loan, which was already due. Obviously, your note is either forged or paid, and I do not owe you anything. But the sages say, Reuven collects the loan recorded in the loan document, and Shimon collects the loan recorded in his loan document. The fact that Reuven borrowed money from Shimon fails to prove that Shimon did not owe money to Reuven at that time. Now, the sages agree with Admon that if Reuven, the first lender, borrowed money from Shimon, the first borrower, after his loan was due, the fact that he borrowed money rather than demanded payment of his loan proves that Shimon did not owe anything. And if Reuven borrowed money from Shimon before his loan was due, everyone agrees that Reuven's failure to demand payment does not prove anything, since he could not have demanded payment then in any event. The dispute applies only when Reuven borrowed from Shimon on the day before his loan was due. Admon argues that since Reuven could have waited just one day to collect his payment, but he borrowed money instead, it's evident that no payment was owed to him. According to the sages, however, people sometimes have to borrow money for just one day. For example, if he needs to buy something immediately. Therefore, it is not unreasonable for Reuven to have borrowed money on that day, even though he could have collected his loan the next day. The Rav does tell us, the Halacha follows the opinion of the sages. That is in Rabotai today's Mishna Yomi. Everybody should have an Erev Shabbat Shalom. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen v'amen.